am making my first ever YouTube video. I am so excited to be making this video because being a YouTuber was a dream of mine since I was a young person, and the time has come where I am ready to use my voice and share my insights and my dreams and my voice with the world. Also, you may see the little ears of my baby. Yeah, I wanted today to talk about death, and in death, talking about life. Because in this time period, we are in a period of plague. We are experiencing mass unaliving at a degree that is very hard for the human psyche to witness and endure. And a lot of the reason why this is also hard is because we have not really been given the time and space to grieve. And I think something about recognizing the sanctity of life is recognizing that an intrinsic part of our life on earth is to be in a consistent relationship with grief. As things are always changing, um, any change comes with grief of what once was, but also a celebration that we are the common denominator that brings life forward. And so, even when there is change and that change is hard, we still have the ability to see both the challenges that comes with moving on and moving forward, as well as the beauty on still being allowed to be on this journey and to be able to learn and grow and transform. I think specifically when it comes to growth and change in the culture that a lot of us who have grown up in the imperial core have been sort of forced into, is one where we never really get to embrace change and transformation for the good and for the difficult. Um, there is grief to be had at so many stages of growth because transformation can be painful. Transformation can be surprising, and transformation can completely shift all of what you once knew. And that in itself can feel like a death. And in our culture, we are not often given the space to look back and to mourn what once was. I think it's important to even think about what mourning and grief has looked like in our pre-colonial cultures. Spaces where we were allowed to wail, where we were allowed to grieve, where we were allowed to be in community with one another, where we were held, where we rested, where we reflected and cried, where we journaled and screamed and walked barefoot on the earth, where we immersed ourselves in the ocean, where we went back to the earth to hold us and nurture us through times of great upheaval or transformation. I think that it's hard to embrace grief when the earth itself is under attack, and thusly we are under attack. And the spaces that are meant to hold us have been made dangerous or scary post-colonialism. For example, I, as a Black person, came to the Americas, Turtle Island, on a boat over the Atlantic Ocean. And so many people in my culture have no good feelings about water. And it's not just been our transport here against our will, but also the fact that we have been systemically barred from swimming pools where we have not been given the time to have relationship with the water in a way that makes us feel safe, in a way that makes us feel held. We haven't been given the time to tell each other the stories of the waters from which we come from, and that detaches us from the waters that live inside of us, the renewal energy of water, the waters of our mother's womb. These are just some examples of how not having access to our traditional grieving communal structures and our relationship to the earth make it hard for us to even process life and the changes that come through it. A book that I have been reading recently has been talking about this, and it has been making me feel very introspective around what grieving is and the role it has in everyday life, as well as how our relationship to death can be a huge um, piece of information around our relationship to life. The book that I have been reading is called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, um, by Sogyal Rinpoche. I don't know if I said that right, but I hope I did. If not, please correct me. Um, but basically, he lived his life um, in Tibet, um, and then moved to America in the 50s. But he studied under many um, prestigious and high level monks who taught him about the mind and about death and how to prepare for death, and not just the final transition we make, but also the many deaths we go through in life. And I wanted to read a poem that he included to sort of talk about the transcendental nature of life itself. Know all things to be like this: a mirage, a cloud castle, a dream, an apparition, without essence but with qualities that can be seen. Know all things to be like this: as the moon in a bright sky in some clear lake reflected, though to that lake the moon has never moved. Know all things to be like this: as an echo that derives from music, sounding, and weeping, yet in that echo is no melody. Know all things to be like this: as a magician makes illusions of horses, oxen, carts, and other things, nothing is as it appears. When I read that, I had to stop in my tracks. I was so moved because I think I had never thought about how being in the present is sort of the only way to like be alive, and that an inability to change um, in your sort of experience of the present moment, as things are always changing every second, um, is sort of to be caught up in the grand illusion, um, because the only truth is change. You know, to quote Octavia Butler in Parable of the Sower, it's like change is God. And so when we are unable to process that change in ways that we have been ancestrally doing for thousands of years, um, we are unable to know ourselves. We are unable to really know the world around us and there is an illusory nature of our experience of the world that never really gives us the opportunity to understand the full transformative power that exists when we are able to harness our now moment. I think I want to read another quote from the next page of this book. Um, and this is a quote from a Tibetan master who advised, always recognize the dreamlike qualities of life and reduce attachment and aversion. Practice good heartedness towards all beings. Be loving and compassionate no matter what others do to you. What they will do will not matter so much when you see it as a dream. The trick is to have positive intention during the dream. This is the essential point. This is true spirituality. And that quote is what led me here to you today. I have been in my head a lot about making YouTube videos, whether I have what it takes to make YouTube videos, whether my voice is important, whether I would say the right things. And I think that this quote allowed me to understand that having positive intention and wanting to share knowledge and connection with others is enough reason to live my life with purpose and with passion, and to make it a good dream based on my good intentions. Because, I recently have been reflecting on what relationships have meant to me, on ways that I felt betrayed, and ways that I felt I betrayed myself. And I think that ultimately, all of those experiences now are a dream. At the end of the day, the person that is left to remember those experiences is me. Um, so I want to do right by myself. And when I do things with good intentions, the dreamlike memories that I have of them are in alignment with what I wanted to do. And I think that's part of life. Me making YouTube videos is a change. Um, it is a good change, but it is a good change because I acknowledge change needed to happen. And I wanted that change to have good intentions and to bring me positive feelings about myself and about sharing myself with the world. And so here I am, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to my ancestors. I'm grateful to the many, many people who have encouraged me and have supported me on this journey to get to this point. I'm grateful to myself for believing in myself and for taking courageous steps forward. Um, I am just beginning to start my journey in Hinduism, and I know that this year, 2025, is a Mars ruled year. And so it is really important to me to take divine action in showing up and communicating around things that I feel are important, things that I have been diving into and thinking about, and sharing them with y'all and getting your understandings of what's going on. And specifically, I want to know how y'all feel about grief. I want to know how y'all are processing the things that are happening and how you are caring for yourself through this time period. because I think times of immense change, instability, and sort of chaos are times where we are being called to tap into our bodies, to understand how we're feeling, and to allow ourselves to release energies that we are being consistently fed, energies that we are intaking consciously and unconsciously, and energies that we did not consensually agree to intaking. So I have been doing a lot of shaking, like shaking out my body and singing and using my voice and writing. And I think that those have all been really helpful. And also, I have two little kitty friends who have been so wonderful and lovely um, in their just being. And that has been really supportive of me during this period. So, yeah, I definitely have more to say about this book and the topic itself, but I just wanted to make this initial video um, to sort of get the ball rolling. I am really grateful to have the space to communicate with y'all, and I want y'all to know that I want this page to be a safe space for people who are growing, people who are grieving, people who are expressing and learning how to express, um, and also people who care about spirituality and just being in community with other people who care. And I also want this space to be um, anti casteist, um, anti colorist, a space for trans people, a space for Black people, a space for queer people, and a space that is sort of a culminating point for all of us to be able to talk about how we're feeling and move through grief and growth together. I am starting a collective and it's called Graha of Griots. And Graha in Sanskrit sort of means like a planetary body, like that which attracts and like pulls, like has a gravitational pull. It's another word for like planet. And griot um, describes the West African tradition of storytelling through music, through spoken like story, um, like oral storytelling, um, through dance and performance and poetry. And I would identify as a griot because I think that communicating the story of my life is one that I do in a multidisciplinary way. And I don't think that we should be confined to one specific medium of communicating and expressing the complexities of our life and our experiences and the things that we have seen and learned. And so, yeah, Raha of Griots is basically a communal space for storytellers who are interdisciplinary artists and performers to come together and hone our ability to communicate our story, no matter what medium artistically we use to do so.